Close your eyes. Take a breath. Now ask yourself, what just did that? Not your lungs, not your brain. Something else. Something you can't see, can't touch, can't measure. For thousands of years, humanity has called this invisible commander by one name: the soul. But what if I told you that this single idea, this ghost in the machine, has shaped every religion, every philosophy, every war, and every hope we've ever had? What if the soul is the most important concept in human history, and we still don't know if it exists? This is the story of an idea that refuses to die. An idea that has been worshipped, dissected, denied, and resurrected across 5,000 years. An idea that asks the most terrifying question of all: when you die, does something survive? Welcome to the brief history of the soul. The birth of eternity, Egypt, 3100 BCE. The Nile floods, crops grow, empires rise. But beneath the temples and the tombs, a revolution is taking place. Not political, not technological, philosophical. The ancient Egyptians look at death and refuse to accept it. They develop a concept so radical it will echo through millennia: the Ka, the life force, the double, the part of you that exists independent of your body. When a pharaoh dies, his Ka continues. It needs food, it needs shelter, it needs his body preserved. This is why they build the pyramids. This is why they mummify. This is why they fill tombs with gold, with bread, with beer. Because death is not the end, it's a transition. But the Egyptians don't stop there. They multiply the soul. The Bay, your personality, your unique essence. The Ak, the transformed, enlightened spirit. The Ib, your heart, the seat of emotion and will. The Ren, your name, which must be spoken to keep you alive in the afterlife. One person contains multitudes, 5 souls, 5 dimensions of existence. Lose one, and you risk oblivion. The stakes could not be higher. The soul is not abstract, it's survival. The Greek awakening, Greece, 6th century BCE. Philosophy is born, and with it a new kind of soul. Pythagoras walks the streets of Croton and makes a claim that will change everything. The soul is immortal. It migrates, it reincarnates. You were someone before this life, and you'll be someone after. The body is temporary. The soul is eternal. His followers become a cult. They don't eat beans. They fear the contamination of matter, because to them the material world is a prison, and the soul is desperate to escape. Then comes Socrates, Athens, 399 BCE. He stands trial for corrupting the youth, for questioning the gods. He's sentenced to death. His students weep. But Socrates does not. He drinks the hemlock with calm. Why? Because he believes, deeply, completely, that his soul will continue. Death is not defeat, it's liberation. The soul sheds the body like an old coat. Plato, his student, takes this further. He writes it down. He systematizes it. The soul has 3 parts: reason, spirit, and appetite. They war within you. Reason must control the others. Balance creates virtue. Chaos creates suffering. But here's the radical part. Plato argues the soul exists before birth. You knew perfect forms, true beauty, true justice, in a realm beyond this one. Life is not learning, it's remembering. You're recovering what you already knew. Knowledge is memory. The soul is ancient. Then Aristotle, Plato's student, disagrees. He rejects immortality. The soul, he says, is the form of the body. You can't separate them. When the body dies, so does the soul. Except maybe the intellect, maybe that part, the divine spark of reason, continues. Maybe. He's uncertain, and that uncertainty will haunt philosophy for 2,000 years. The soul becomes sacred. Judea, 1st century CE. A new religion emerges from the deserts, Christianity, and it carries with it a new soul, one that will dominate the Western world. The Christian soul is personal, it's unique. God creates it, God judges it, and its fate, eternal paradise or eternal damnation, depends on one lifetime, one choice. There's no reincarnation, no second chances, no migration. You get one life, one soul, one verdict. The pressure is unbearable, the stakes infinite. Salvation or hellfire. Everything depends on belief, on faith, on the state of your soul when you die. Augustine of Hippo, 4th century CE, wrestles with this. He writes his confessions. He searches his soul, literally. He catalogues his sins, his doubts, his inner turmoil. The soul becomes a battlefield between God and temptation. Introspection becomes a spiritual duty. The soul is no longer just an idea. It's the core of religious life. It must be saved. Medieval Europe builds an entire civilization around this concept. Monasteries, cathedrals, crusades, all in service of the soul. Thomas Aquinas, in the 13th century, merges Aristotle with Christianity. The soul is the form of the body, yes, but God makes it immortal. Reason and faith united. The soul is now doctrine. To deny it is heresy. To question it is death. The Eastern divergence. But while Europe built cathedrals, the East built something different. India, 5th century BCE. The Buddha sits under the Bodhi tree and comes to a realization that will shatter Hindu orthodoxy. There is no soul. Anatta, non-self. What you call you is an illusion, a collection of sensations, perceptions, mental formations, all temporary, all changing. There's no permanent essence, no rider in the chariot, just the chariot moving. This is liberation, not the immortality of the soul, but freedom from the soul. The end of craving, the end of suffering, nirvana. But Hinduism, from which Buddhism emerges, tells a different story. The Atman, the true self, the eternal soul, is identical to Brahman, the universal consciousness. You are not separate from the divine. You are the divine, covered in layers of illusion. When you die, the Atman migrates. It takes a new body based on karma, your actions, your intentions. Life after life after life. The cycle of samsara, until through wisdom and detachment you break free. You realize your unity with everything. The soul in the East is not personal. It's cosmic. In China, a different view emerges. Taoism speaks of energies, Hun and Po, spiritual and physical souls that separate at death. Confucianism focuses less on the soul and more on ancestors, on continuity through family, through ritual. The soul fragments. It multiplies. It dissolves. It becomes something beyond Western categories. The Age of Doubt, Europe, 17th century. The scientific revolution begins. Galileo looks through a telescope. Newton describes gravity. Descartes dissects the human body. And a question emerges: where is the soul? Descartes tries to save it. He draws a line. The body is matter. Mechanical, predictable, measurable. The soul is mind, thinking, willing, immaterial. They interact through the pineal gland, deep in the brain. But it's a fragile solution. How does immaterial thought move material flesh? How does the ghost push the machine? Philosophers attack the problem. Spinoza denies the duality. There's only one substance, and mind and body are two aspects of it. Leibniz proposes pre-established harmony. The soul and body don't interact. They just run in parallel, synchronized by God like two perfect clocks. But the cracks are showing. The soul is losing ground. The Enlightenment arrives. Reason becomes king. Hume in the 18th century applies skepticism ruthlessly. He looks inward for the soul and finds nothing. Just a bundle of perceptions. No unified self, no permanent essence. Maybe the soul is fiction. Maybe it's a grammatical error. We say I think, so we assume there's an I doing the thinking. But what if there's just thinking? Kant tries to rescue metaphysics. The soul, he argues, is a necessary assumption. You can't prove it exists, but you need it to make sense of moral responsibility. It's a postulate of practical reason, but the defense feels weak. The soul is now an assumption, not a certainty. The scientific assault. 19th century. Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species. Humans are not special. We're animals. We evolved. Our minds evolved. Our consciousness evolved. No divine spark. No immaterial essence. Just biology. If thought is produced by the brain, what's left for the soul to do? Neuroscience begins its march. Paul Broca discovers that damage to a specific brain region destroys speech. Different parts of the brain control different functions. Consciousness is modular, fragmented. Psychology emerges. Freud maps the unconscious. The soul becomes the psyche. Not immortal, not divine, but messy, driven by instincts, shaped by childhood trauma. William James investigates. He studies religious experiences, mystical states, altered consciousness. He finds them fascinating but explains them through psychology, not theology. The soul becomes subjective experience. The 20th century accelerates. Behaviorists like B.F. Skinner reject inner states entirely. Consciousness is a black box. Only behavior matters. The soul is unnecessary. Then neuroscience explodes. Brain scans reveal which areas activate during thought, emotion, memory. Damage to the hippocampus destroys memory formation. Damage to the frontal lobe changes personality. The famous case of Phineas Gage. A railroad spike pierces his brain. He survives, but his personality changes completely. If damage to the brain changes who you are, is who you are just your brain? If the soul exists, where does it hide? The modern crisis today. The soul is in retreat. Cognitive science describes the mind as computation. Neurons fire in patterns, information processes. The brain is a biological computer, consciousness an emergent property of complexity. Some scientists, like Francis Crick, declare the soul dead. You're nothing but a pack of neurons. Your hopes, your loves, your sense of self, all electrochemical reactions. Others resist. Philosophers like David Chalmers argue there's a hard problem of consciousness. You can explain brain activity, but you can't explain experience. Why does seeing red feel like something? Why is there a subjective interior at all? The explanatory gap remains. Maybe the soul has always been our word for this mystery, the felt sense of being alive. Meanwhile, technology complicates everything. If we upload your brain to a computer, does your soul transfer? If we clone you, does the clone have a soul? If we build an AI that claims consciousness, do we believe it? Ooh. The questions our ancestors asked in Egypt, in Greece, in India, they return. Not answered, transformed. What we lost, what we gained. Here's what happens when the soul disappears from a culture. First meaning fractures. If there's no eternal essence, no cosmic purpose, then life is what you make it. Existentialism rises. Sartre, Camus, they stare into the void and say we are radically free. We are alone. We must create our own values. Some find this liberating, others terrifying. Second, ethics shift. If humans don't have souls, are we still special? Do we still have inherent dignity? Or are we just sophisticated animals? Moral philosophy scrambles to find new foundations, reason, empathy, social contracts. But the ground feels less solid. Third, death changes. Without the soul, death is final. This life is all you have. For some, it makes life more precious. For others, more absurd. But here's the paradox. Even as science dismantles the soul, people cling to it. Polls show the majority of humans still believe in some form of afterlife, some continuity beyond death. The soul persists in culture, in language, in intuition. We still talk about soulmates, soul food, selling your soul. The words carry weight even when the metaphysics collapses. Maybe the soul is not a thing to be proven or disproven. Maybe it's a story we tell, a story about continuity, about value, about the irreducible mystery of being someone instead of no one. The unfinished question. So where does this leave us? 5,000 years of debate. 5,000 years of certainty, doubt, transformation, and return. The ancient Egyptians preserved the body for the soul's journey. The Greeks sought to purify it. The Christians sought to save it. The Buddhists sought to dissolve it. The scientists sought to explain it away. And yet the question remains. When you close your eyes and feel yourself thinking, who is thinking? When you make a choice, who chooses? When you suffer, who suffers? Is consciousness just brain activity, or is there something more? If you could rebuild a person atom by atom, would it be the same person? If you lose your memories, do you lose yourself? These aren't ancient puzzles. They're immediate. They're personal. They're unresolved. The soul may be the most enduring mystery in human thought, not because we've failed to answer it, but because the question evolves with us. Each era reimagines the soul in its own image, eternal, rational, sacred, illusory, computational. But beneath every theory, beneath every argument, there's a deeper current, the human need to believe we matter, that we're more than meat, that something in us touches the infinite. Maybe that need is the soul. Maybe the soul is not what we have, but what we seek. The history of the soul is not over, it's still being written in laboratories, in temples, in philosophy departments, in your own private thoughts as you wonder what survives. Because here's the final truth. As long as humans exist, we will ask this question. We will search for this ghost. We will debate, believe, and doubt. The soul is the story we tell about ourselves, and the story is not finished. So I leave you with this. If science proved tomorrow that consciousness is fully explained by neurons, that there is no soul, no afterlife, nothing beyond, would it change how you live? Would you love differently? Choose differently? Suffer differently? Or does the soul live not in proof but in the question itself? What do you think survives?